Hey, what's going on, everyone? So I've been thinking of how to do this video for a little while now, and originally I was going to basically do my personal must-play list of the entire 8th generation. Which games do I feel that you should have experienced and picked up and played? But the problem is that if I do that and I go into detail about each and every single one, we're going to be here for like 2 hours, and I don't want to sit here and be sitting here doing this video for 2 hours. I know that you guys don't want to sit here for 2 hours either. I'm trying to be respectful of your time. I feel like a target of like 30 minutes or so is more appropriate. And so what I've decided to do is this instead. I'm going to give you guys basically my top 5 best games this generation. And then I'm going to also give you guys the honorable mentions, the other games that I feel that you should have also played. But I'm not going to go into such significant detail about them. I feel like if you wanted to know my thoughts on a lot of these games, if you watch my game collection video, my PS4 and Xbox One game collection videos, I do go into, some slight, quick thoughts about each of those games throughout my collection when I went through them. But, I'm not going to basically reiterate that and then build upon that. Because, again, there's a lot of games here. And, before when I built that list, it was like over 50 games. It was a lot of games. So what I'm going to do instead is just do the top 5 best games this generation, as well as basically just the honorable mentions, but not go into detail about them. So I hope that is okay. Again, if you guys want to know my more detailed thoughts, I am willing to at least write them out. So if you type in the comments, hey, what do you think about this game? I'll get back to you and I'll let you guys know, like, in full detail what I do think. But just for this video, for time, to be respectful of people's time as well as mine as well, and not to make this so overbearing of a workload for me to actually edit this and put it out, I'm going to kind of condense this and make this a little bit shorter. So I hope that's okay. Thank you all so much for understanding, and regardless, I do hope you enjoy this video. Thanks. Alright guys, how's it going? And welcome to my desktop. We're going to start off taking a look at my must-play games of the 8th generation that are installed on my computer. So these are the ones I can't obviously show you the case for, because pretty much PC gaming is 100% digital. At least that's how I purchase games. I think you could still go and buy a case, but if you buy a case, it comes with a digital code inside. It's completely worthless. Anyway, I don't think I've ever showed off my desktop before, but if you're interested, I'll do that now. So on the left here, I keep an icon of all the games that are installed on my computer. So this is literally my entire PC collection installed on my computer as icons. Now, I don't access the games this way. I usually open up the client, and if I need to use the internet and stuff, I usually have everything lined up down here in the taskbar. And over to the right here are sort of my utilities. So I have my recycle bin, CPU-Z, which basically just gives you a look at your PC specs, IDA64, which is a benchmarking tool. This is like notes and stuff for work. This is my printer settings, my webcam settings. This is the Tomb Raider 2 demo, which just got an update and stuff. I downloaded it on my computer, so gonna check that out later. And this is a permanent install, or I should say a permanent restore of PT, the Silent Hills game on PS4. So what I did is that on my base PS4, what I did is I did a backup of basically just the game installed on the hard drive. And so let's say like my PS4 and my PS4 Pro break and I literally lose my PC installs on those machines. All I have to do is just get any random PS4 and then just do a backup, I guess a restore of this file. And what it does is it just installs the game back on the hard drive. So this makes it much easier to get the game back, and it's permanent as well. My PSN ID is attached to it, so it's pretty good. I can always have PT on hand, so I just basically backed it up to a USB, then put the backup on my desktop, and that's gonna be permanent. So not gonna be touching that. But anyway, taking a look at my PC games here, I'm just gonna open up Steam and we'll start from here. So, I have a lot more games on Steam. These are just the installed games. There's no point in me having, a list of all my games here because it's just not necessary. So I always keep a list of basically just the installed games because that's all I need to access. And I still have my old computer from the one I originally built and uploaded a video on that everyone made fun of me for. I still have that computer. It still works, and I still have games installed in it. But for this PC, these are the games I have installed that I purchased from Steam. So I want to start off talking about Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3 and then also Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Both of these games are absolutely one of the best games I played this generation. I consider them must-plays. I think Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is probably my favorite From Software game, just narrowly beating out Bloodborne, and I just like it because of the fast-pacedness. Like, the combat of this game is phenomenal. Dark Souls 3 I really enjoyed as well. However, I just beat Demon Souls on PS5, and I actually think I like Demon Souls more than I like Dark Souls 3. But both of these games are just phenomenal. They definitely deserve to be played this year if you haven't checked them out. I also want to give a shout out to Doom and Doom Eternal as well. Both of these games are just phenomenal. I think I like the first game just a tad more, but honestly both of these are fantastic. Doom Eternal's pacing is just super quick. It's like, I mean, I thought I was gonna have a seizure or something while playing this game. It's so fast. It's like almost unnervingly fast. Like, I had to like take a break because I had to like make sure I was breathing and my heart rate was fine playing this game. It's like the stuff they expected to do is just absolutely insane. It's nuts. But both of these are absolutely fantastic. Fallout 4 as well. I really like the gameplay improvements to this game. I felt like Bethesda really improved the gunplay to the point where it's actually completely usable now. Like, Fallout 3's gunplay was just horrible, and so you had to rely on VATS. In this game, the gunplay is so good that it actually almost discourages VATS. And I like the storytelling of it. I thought the graphics were pretty decent as well. I played this game on PC and I played it at 4K 60 FPS, so I didn't have any of the technical issues that a lot of people had on consoles, but it's still a great game. And then the Hitman games, Hitman 1 and Hitman 2, I really liked both of these. You know, I just think they're fantastic, and definitely pick up Hitman 2 if you haven't, because you can literally play Hitman 1 within Hitman 2, and now that Hitman 3 is out, you can literally play Hitman 1, 2, all in Hitman 3, which is great. So both of these are just fantastic games, and it's just awesome to see like really solid Hitman games. I cannot wait for IO Interactive's 007 game coming out. That is just awesome. I also want to talk about Jurassic World Evolution. So I was a huge fan of the Roller Coaster Tycoon games. I used to play those back on the Windows 98 Gateway PC, or was it Windows XP as well. So I was like, I'm a huge fan of basically Roller Coaster Tycoon. I was back when I was a kid. I put so many hours in those games. That was my jam. Jurassic World Evolution is basically like those games, except you're building it in the Jurassic Park universe, and it's just so cool. I spent so much time, as you can see, 31 hours in this game. It's just awesome. I absolutely loved it. It was, as a Jurassic Park fan myself, this was just fantastic to play, and you know, you can create everything you want. The graphics are great as well. Really enjoyed it. Kingdom Come Deliverance. So I uploaded a video, really was a snippet of my stream playing this game, and I beat the game on stream, which I wasn't expecting. And the ending is so abrupt, it just basically ends. It's like, I made a joke back then when I was playing the game that it's like the developers ran out of money, and it pretty much is like that. It just ends, it's completely unsatisfying. However, everything leading up to that ending is just phenomenal. This is one of the best RPGs that have come out, and again, it's really the story reasons of why The Witcher 3 overall beats this game. This game's based on real history, which is just awesome. It's not a fantasy game. It's actually based on real history with knights and stuff like that, and it's just so cool. Such great characters, you know, an interesting narrative, interesting point in history. The graphics are phenomenal. I can't recommend this game if you have a base PS4, a base Xbox One, or even if you have a PS4 Pro. Unfortunately, the game just has so many technical issues. It's almost as bad as Cyberpunk on the base consoles. It's really bad. It couldn't handle it. If you have an Xbox One X, the game is manageable only because of the brute force, you know, of that console. It just narrowly is able to provide you a decent experience, but really PC is where it's at. This honestly is a next-gen game that you know, just came out 2 years before the next gen consoles came out, but it pushes the hardware so much. I think if you have a PS5 or a Series X, you can probably play this game in backwards compatibility without any issues now, but this game's phenomenal, man. Honestly, one of the best RPGs to come out this generation. It's just, it's fantastic. So that's everything I wanted to talk about from my Steam catalog here. We're gonna go over to Epic Games next. And Control is what I wanted to discuss. This is probably Remedy Games' best game that they have put out. It literally takes the best elements of Max Payne, of Alan Wake, and there's so many references to those games as well in this one. I love the combat. It's fast-paced. It's actually pretty varied. You have these cool superpowers and stuff like that. It's got this really kind of, you know, traditional type of Remedy storyline. It's not so straightforward. It kind of reminds me of if Christopher Nolan did a video game, this is kind of almost how it would be like. You know, it's very cryptic in some moments, but gosh, the game itself is fantastic. I love the environment. It's such a cool twist with, you know, the game takes place in just one location, but there's so much variability in where you go in that one location. It's nuts. And it's got horror elements. It's got cool action set pieces. I love this game. It's fantastic. They have cool DLC. It's free right now if you have a PS Plus and a PS4 or PS5. You can play this game with ray tracing on PS5, and it's probably one of it's pretty much the poster child for how ray tracing should be done in the game. It's super heavy, but man, this game is awesome. Outer Worlds as well, I want to mention, this is you know, pretty much Obsidian Games coming back to their roots, and it's really nice to see a cool spin-off of a game that, you know, well, not really a spin-off, but they took their own sort of idea and fleshed it out, you know. And you know, this game's kind of it's on the shorter side. It's much more smaller scale than something like, I would say, Fallout New Vegas, but it's still got the core RPG roots, and I love the art direction. It's a great game that honestly, you know, you should definitely play, just not on Nintendo Switch. And so last, we're here on the EA Origin games, and I want to mention Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. This game is awesome. This game is really, really awesome. It's probably the best thing to come out from EA in recent years, at least as far as Star Wars is concerned. This is pretty much, you know, the best EA Star Wars game out there, and it's just one of the best Star Wars games in general out there. It's awesome. Respawn Games did a phenomenal job. They took basically the gameplay elements of something like From Software's Sekiro, put it into like a Star Wars universe, and it's just great. You know, it's difficult at times. The level design is so interesting, and there's so many different ways to explore. It's got great storytelling, great character development. It's everything you could possibly want in a great Star Wars game, and it's absolutely fantastic. It just got upgraded to support the next-gen graphical features of like the PS5 and the Series X as well. So it's unfortunate because on base consoles last generation, this game was basically unplayable. It wasn't that bad, you know, but it had really major technical issues with streaming and stuff like that, levels not loading before you get to them. So it was absolutely, you know, it was pretty poor on the last gen consoles. But you know, if you have a PC that can play it, or if you have a next-gen console, or even one of the enhanced consoles, it's much better. And I also want to mention Titanfall 2 for the campaign. This is simply one of the finest FPS campaigns that have come out this generation. Not a lot of people talk about this game. It pretty much died as soon as it came out because, unfortunately, EA decided to release this a week after Battlefield and a week before Call of Duty. Geez, what do you think was going to happen? But if you played this game for the campaign like I did, besides it being short, you know, and that's really the only negative part about this game, what is basically there is a phenomenal game. It's a phenomenal story, just great gameplay, epic moments, great level design. You know, it's unfortunate. Titanfall is probably dead, and I would really like to see Respawn sort of take this to a much larger scale sci-fi, you know, type of game that's more focused on single player. They probably won't ever do that, but you know, maybe Respawn can do something different. We'll have to see. But yeah, that's basically a look at all of my PC games on here that I basically consider to be the must-play games. You know, there's a lot on here, but those are the standout ones I wanted to mention. And yeah, I guess we'll transition over to my console library now. Alright, so you guys just took a look at my PC catalog. Next we're going to be going to my console games, and then we're going to get into the top 5 best games this generation. Well, my personal list of top 5 best games this generation. And then we'll go on from there, right? So, first thing I have for the honorable mentions here is Ori and the Will of the Wisp. This is a great platformer, highly recommend it. Next up we have Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. Almost tied for my favorite Assassin's Creed. It's either this or Assassin's Creed 2. I always go back and forth, but great game. And next I have the Yakuza games. So we have Yakuza 0, which is personally my favorite in the entire franchise. I highly recommend you guys play this game. It's just phenomenal. And then we got the Kiwami games. So we got Yakuza Kiwami 1 and then Kiwami 2. These are remakes of the first 2 Yakuza games, and they're just excellent. They're really, really great. And then we have the remastered collection, which is 3, 4, 5, and 3, 4, 5, and then we have 6 here, which basically ends the entire franchise, well, for this particular character. So, yeah, I do highly recommend all these. I also want to give an honorable mention as well to Judgment. This is basically a spin-off that takes place within the same universe, but it's really, really excellent and really good. So I do highly recommend all these games, basically. All the Yakuza games, including Judgment, for ones that you should definitely play this past generation. Next up is Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and with that as well, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, for the campaign specifically. This personally is probably my top 3 favorite Call of Duty campaigns. It's just excellent. Modern Warfare just sort of reinvigorated the franchise, brought it back on the right track, so we'll see how it does in the future, but both of these I did want to include in here. Next up we have Drive Club. So this is my personal favorite racing game on PS4. I just really, really enjoy it. I like that it's a little bit more arcadey, but it does take some simulation elements, and just really awesome. So do highly recommend that. We have Dreams. I was blown away by this game. I still am blown away by this game. I hated Little Big Planet and basically everything else Media Molecule put out. I just didn't care for it. I tried this game because I was just curious, seeing how vast some of these guys' creations were. It's just, I mean, I'm in shock every single time I put this game into my PS4. It's just like, wow. You know, what people are able to create with this stuff is just mind-blowing. So I do recommend you guys get this game just as an experiment to play other people's creations, because it's just, like, you'll be blown away by what people can actually do and how powerful and realistic some of these creations are. So it's just awesome. Next up, we have Bloodborne. This game almost made it in the top 5 best games, but ultimately it was beat out. I did want to include it in here with Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, as well as Dark Souls 3, which I have on PC. But it's just awesome. This was my first entry point into the Souls type style of games, and I was just, I was in love with it. It's a phenomenal game. Definitely needs to be played. Let's hope for a PS5 upgrade someday, but do highly recommend it. Next up we have Detroit Become Human. This is probably Quantic Dream's best game in my opinion. Love the branching paths, and there's so much variability in terms of the narrative. But it's just great visuals, and it's just a really cool experience. We have Dying Light. So if you told me, I think I said this in my game collection, if you told me that the developers behind one of the worst games last generation were going to make one of the best games this generation, I just wouldn't have believed you. It's awesome. It really is awesome, and I love the parkour elements. I'm still waiting for Dying Light 2. I feel like that's going to be a great next-gen showpiece. We'll have to see if they're still going to be porting it on the current-gen consoles, but yeah, pretty awesome. Next up, we have the Uncharted games. So I have Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, as well as The Lost Legacy. Both of these are fantastic. I love the way that they ended the story in Uncharted 4. I felt like it was just such a... It's nice when a developer respects the franchise enough to put an end to it. Now, I don't personally want another Uncharted. I know there's this rumor that Sony started a new studio and they're working on Uncharted 5, alright? I love Uncharted. Uncharted was the reason I wanted a PS3 to begin with. You know, Uncharted 1. That was before the franchise really took off. So, I'm a huge Uncharted fan, but I'm also a believer in let good things die peacefully. Don't milk it and then fucking kill it and then make a horrible game. You know, just let it die peacefully. These are great games, all in their own right. Both of these I do highly recommend. This is a much shorter game, but it's not really that short. It's about 10 hours long, but it's also just a great continuation and stuff like that. So I do highly recommend these games. They're fantastic. And then next up we have Spider-Man 2018 from Insomniac. Awesome game, one of the best superhero games, probably the best superhero game this generation, I would say. They just did a great job with this, great storytelling, great visuals, just awesome. Next up, here's a surprise one. Sherlock Holmes Crimes and Punishments. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, if you guys have been following me for a few years now, you've known I've talked a lot about this game. This is one of the best detective games I've ever played, and I really, really highly recommend it. It's awesome. I know it's like Sherlock Holmes, like what? You know, you wouldn't think of it. You know, you think this is probably like some cheap just B movie type of game. It kind of is almost, but it's just that it's storytelling. It's just the actual investigations in part. It reminded me of times of L.A. Noire. It's really, really well put together. They have a horrible sequel out called The Devil's Daughter. Don't play that shit. Play this one, Crimes and Punishments. It's amazing. It really is. Next up we have Ratchet and Clank, the reboot of the franchise that kind of coincided with the film. I heard the film kind of tanked, but the actual game was really, really good, and I really loved it. And, I haven't played a Ratchet and Clank game for many years before going into this one, so I'm actually really looking forward to Rift Apart coming out for PS5. That's going to be really cool, but this is a great game. Next up we have the Resident Evil games. So I got Resident Evil 7 as well as Resident Evil 3. I think Resident Evil... Yeah, there it is. Hold on. Resident Evil 2. There we go. So all of these games are fantastic. Resident Evil 7 is more of sort of a reboot, I guess, of the franchise, if you want to say, first-person perspective. This is more classic Resident Evil. These are just the remakes of the original 2 and 3, but both of these are just fantastic. I really, really enjoyed them. And Resident Evil 7 as well is just a great game. So, all these, I really feel like Capcom really put themselves on a rise, this generation. They really just... It's funny because last generation they were like in the gutter, but this generation they just completely, just excelled and brought themselves out of it. Next up is Outlast, the first game. I do have the Trinity, which is just a collection of the first game, the DLC, and then the second game. Didn't enjoy the second game as much. It's a little bit more fantastical. It improves on a lot of the gameplay elements, but it doesn't have any of the cool story elements and just the deep horrors of the first game, in my opinion. The first game is just phenomenal, one of the best survival horror games this generation. Honestly, the first game is the reason the survival horror genre really excelled this generation. There's so many games that took inspiration from it, so do highly recommend the Trinity, which comes with basically all of them. Next up we have Ghost of Tsushima. Really, really love this game. Probably Sucker Punch's best game. Love the graphical art direction. Just love the the actual combat and stuff of the game. This story was also really, really good. So I really enjoyed this game from start to finish. I did a 100% playthrough, all the side missions complete, all the districts and everything complete. Pretty much everything collected as well. So yeah, just an awesome, awesome game. We have the Metal Gear Solid 5 games. So I wanted to include these on here. I know, Metal Gear Solid 5, by all accounts, Kojima was not able to complete this game, but I did want to include it on here because the gameplay elements are just so awesome. This game in particular holds the longest single playthrough for any game I've ever played, like 130 hours, close to 130 hours I spent playing this game, and doing all the missions, by the way. This Ground Zeroes was basically an introduction into the gameplay elements of the Phantom Pain, but Ground Zeroes is more like a demo almost, a glorified demo, pretty much people called it. I really liked it. I spent 20 hours of Ground Zeroes doing, basically all the mission objectives and all the side stuff, and really, really liked it. But I needed to include this on here. Both of these are just fantastic, and they're great games, and, despite the issues with the story, I do recommend it. Next up, The Evil Within 2. Now, I was really surprised by this. I'm sure some of you might be surprised to see this, especially if you haven't played this game. This game's story really blew me away. In fact, I was almost on the verge of tears finishing this game. I was so surprised at just how emotionally involved this game gets you. And it progresses the actual gameplay elements of the first game. It's awesome. Now, I don't have the first game on this list because I do feel like the first game was okay. But this corrects literally all the issues with the first game. If you haven't played the first game, do play it because you can go into the sequel with a little bit more backstory. It's not necessary to know in this game, but, it is a continuation. It is a sequel. So I do recommend you play the first game for that reason, but definitely this sequel is just, it's phenomenal. I was really surprised by it. Next up, Final Fantasy VII, the remake, alright? Now, I never played the original Final Fantasy VII, so this is basically my entry point into the franchise. They expanded this story. This is basically going to be a multi-part game series that they're going to be putting out. But as far as like a Final Fantasy goes, I mean, I played Final Fantasy 15 earlier this year, right? But I thought the game was pretty decent. You know, it was okay. I enjoyed parts of it. This game I really enjoyed. I love the gameplay elements of this game. This isn't a game of my style that I really would enjoy, but the way that they did it in this game was just fantastic. I love the storytelling, the cutscenes, the visuals, and all that stuff. It is a great game, and I do highly recommend it. And I think it might be coming to other platforms soon, by the way. At the moment, it's still a PS4 exclusive. Next up, we have Days Gone. So, very surprised by this game. This game's got a great story, man. It really does. Very surprising as well. It's got a great twist at the end, and you get different story elements depending on the side missions. Like, the side missions actually have purpose. They have their own narrative attached to them, which is really, really cool. I like the gameplay of this game as well. You know, it's a type of game where after you're done playing it and you have all the upgrades and stuff, it plays dramatically different than at the start of the game with barely anything. And it does take a little bit to get going. But I was really surprised by this game. I feel like it's definitely deserves to be on here as one of the best games this generation, and definitely something you should play. It's native 4K, native 60 FPS now on PS5, so if you have that console, absolutely give it a shot. Next up is Wolfenstein: The New Order. One of the best FPSs this year, without a doubt. It might probably be the best FPS I personally feel like this year. It's just got... I mean, this is a hardcore single-player, you know, first-person shooter. There's no multiplayer or anything like that, and they just really, really did a phenomenal job. In particular, it's the way the gunplay feels that I feel is what this game really separates itself from the other. I mean, I'm not sure what they did, but there's a certain amount of inertia and velocity that you feel with each bullet that's leaving the chamber, and the way that the controller reacts as well with the vibrations and stuff. It really is phenomenal. So do highly recommend this game if you haven't played it. Now they have Wolfenstein 2, which I didn't feel was as good. Then they had the Old Blood, which is sort of DLC, a sort of separate spin-off game as well. And then Young Blood, which I did enjoy a lot for the gameplay improvements. But this game in particular is honestly probably the best Wolfenstein game that's ever come out. One of the best FPSs this year without a doubt for me. All right. Next up we have Rise of the Tomb Raider, my favorite in the actual trilogy of the Tomb Raider games that recently just came out and finished. So this basically fixed all of my very minor issues with the first game, Tomb Raider 2013, that is. This game's awesome. I really like the set-piece moments. I love the action, the shooting, the storytelling this time is much better told. The world design and the level building and stuff. There's much more variety and stuff in what you do. So I really feel like this is probably the best Tomb Raider game from the entire reboot trilogy of games that they released. Now I do hope that Crystal Dynamics does go back to the franchise and do a classic Tomb Raider game. Something like Tomb Raider Legend that they did would be really, really awesome. But we'll see, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I wanted to include this on here. It's just awesome. One of the best graphics as well. This game's really, really heavy on PC and on consoles as well. Red Dead Redemption 2. I was blown away by this game. I feel like if you were to ask me, Cameron, what is the best visuals of any game you've ever played? I feel like it is Red Dead Redemption 2 in terms of this generation. There's a lot of reasons for this. This game just has... it might not have maybe the best textures on consoles and stuff like that, but, on PC, you can really see the amount of effort that they put in. But this game just, when you're looking at it, you're just like, shaking your head like this shouldn't be possible on a current gen console. It really is fantastic. On Xbox One X, it's native 4K. It really, really just brings the world to life, in all honesty. The animations, the animations get into the way of the gameplay, but they're so fluid and so smooth. This is simply the best animations I've ever seen on a console title. Maybe next to like The Last of Us Part 2, but really, really fantastic. Really, really enjoyed this. All right. Next up we have Mad Max. Now, I played this first on PC, but I did buy it on consoles first. So I bought it on consoles, and I built my PC because I didn't play it yet, and I rebought the game on PC. So that's what I did. I played it there. This is probably, honestly, Avalanche Studios' best game. So much world building and just storytelling within the world. It's very vast, You have to really understand the Mad Max, I guess, atmosphere and lore to really fully appreciate the game. The game has really brutal combat as well. It kind of takes it from the Batman series, but it's a little bit more strategic. It's a little bit more brutal, and much more bloody and stuff. But and then you have your magnum opus car that you just build on top of that. So honestly, this is definitely one of the more underrated games that came out this generation. It definitely, I think, deserves to be played. And like I said, Avalanche Studios' best game by far. These are the guys who did the Just Cause games, and yeah, there's so much more. This game's much more grounded and a lot more heavy set and just a lot more fine-tuned than I would say any of the Just Cause games were. Alright, winding down here until we get to the top 5 best games. Next up we have Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. This game almost got the top 5 as well, but you know, it's still a phenomenal game. I played this first on PS4 and rebought it when it came out for a physical copy on Xbox One. Microsoft now owns the studio Ninja Theory, so the second game, Senua Saga, that is coming out, I'm really, really excited for. Some of the best visuals I've seen this generation, and it's honestly, it's a story with actual meaning and purpose. Like, there's a real purpose behind why this game exists, and I was blown away. This is one of the best games I've played this generation, and highly, highly recommend it. It's just awesome. Alright, we have the last few games here. I'm just going to grab them here. We have Forza Horizon 3, probably the best overall racing game this entire generation, I would say. It really is phenomenal. And love the, what was it, Australia, I think it is, as the location for the world. You have these great deserts, you got these freaking, you know, lush tropical jungles and stuff like that. You got these more urban environments. There's so much variety in it. Honestly, the best Forza Horizon game and the best driving game this entire generation, I feel like. So definitely give it a shot. We have Devil May Cry 5. Great hack and slasher, great storytelling, great visuals as well. This is built on the Resident Evil engine. It's one of the best looking games this generation. Really enjoyed it. It's a phenomenal game and just great combat and everything like that. And next up we have Until Dawn, which you know, Supermassive Games made. It's sort of like in the vein of Quantic Dream style games where, you know, you're using QuickTime events and stuff to move the story along. But I love the visuals in this game. It's made on the Killzone engine, which is called what's it called? Decima. It's called the Decima engine now. So it's built on that engine. The graphics look phenomenal. You know, the game is really fun to play. It's got a great twist in its story too. You think it's very cliche and just ridiculous, but then you get to like the halfway point of the game and everything changes, and it's really cool. So really awesome. And then the last game for the honorable mention here is The Last of Us Part 2. So I pretty much avoided talks about this game for on my YouTube channel because I know how controversial the game is. I'll tell you guys something, that I did not enjoy the game. I did not enjoy the experience because of how overly depressing and brutal it is. But as far as a game goes, it's phenomenal. You know, it's funny to me that a lot of people complain about the narrative in this game, but a lot of those guys who are complaining don't play games for the stories. You know, it's like you can't tell me that you really don't like the narrative of this game. Like that's like the sole purpose of why this game shouldn't exist, right? It's because of the narrative choice of this game. But then you play games like Fortnite and stuff, and you play these games like Destiny and these MMO games that are just sort of repetitive and not that interesting on their own right. It's just the multiplayer looter shooter aspect, you know. As someone like myself who plays games for storytelling and the narrative is the most important thing, I don't play games with the sense of agency, like the story is mine and I'm actually going through these events. So, I mean, I was shocked, I was uncomfortable playing this game, but ultimately it's an experience that is unforgettable, and ultimately I felt something. And that to me is the most valuable in terms of an experience. I don't care what I feel, as long as you can make me feel something. You know, that I feel is an accomplishment in its own right. You know, the greatest sin a story can commit is basically not having you give a shit about anything. And at least with this story, regardless of the, you know, decisions and outcomes and stuff that actually happen, you do actually give a shit about the stuff that happens. It does make you feel something. Now, finally, we're done with our honorable mentions. Let's get to the top 5 best games this generation. Some of you can probably point that out already by some of the games I didn't mention here, but these are my personal top 5 best games this generation in order, okay? Alright, so I have the games here, my top 5 best games this generation, and let's get to it. I'm going to go through these in order. So, number 5 is Nier Automata. This game really blew me away. I never played the first one. They're actually remaking the first one. It's coming out in a couple of months. But this game is phenomenal. It's probably got the best soundtrack of any game this entire generation, and probably ever. You know, the soundtrack is really phenomenal. It's really incredible. The gameplay is incredibly varied. You know, one minute you're playing a hack and slash 3D game, next you transition to like a side-scroller platformer, then you got like a shoot-'em-up game, and it's just, there's so much variety in terms of the actual gameplay, and it switches between it all seamlessly. It's like the camera just moves to like a 2D perspective, and all of a sudden it's like, you know, you're playing like Metroid or something like that. It's really, really phenomenal. Now, I played the game twice. You're supposed to play it 3 times, because if you play it through once, and then you get one element of the story, you play it through twice, you play as a different character, and supposedly if you play it through a 3rd time, it's like a completely different game. So the way it delivers its story is that you have to replay it, and you actually replay it and get a different experience because you're playing different people, you're getting different perspectives of the actual main story. So I'm going to be playing this game for a 3rd and final time before Nier Replicant comes out. So really, really enjoyed this. But yeah, just because of the innovation in terms of the gameplay, I feel like this definitely deserves to be on there. And the music and everything, it's just phenomenal. It really is. All right, so that's number 5. Number 4, Alien Isolation. This had to be in the top 5 for me. It's probably one of the best survival horror games I've ever played, if not the best survival horror game I've ever played. What's so interesting about this game is that it takes something that we all know. You know, we all seen a xenomorph before. We all know Alien. You know, it's such a big pop culture, you know, phenomenon of a movie and just, you know, franchise and all that stuff. Everyone knows Alien. What's so interesting about this game is that still, with all your knowledge and, you know, you've seen all the twists, you know what a xenomorph looks like and everything like that, this game still manages to scare the utter shit out of you and just throws you for a loop. Honestly, I feel like this is more of a better sequel to Alien, the original film, than Aliens ever was. And it follows a different character. And honestly, I wish like Ridley Scott would take this game and make it into an actual film, because the actual storytelling of the game is great. And this is exactly what I think people want for like another Alien film. But I really do highly recommend this game. It's awesome. It's on Nintendo Switch right now. I mean, you can get this game pretty much everywhere. It's on Nintendo Switch, and it's actually a good port of the game on Nintendo Switch. So, yeah, it definitely needed to be in my top 5. It's such... I really hope we'll get a sequel one day. I just don't think we ever will, and even if we do, it's not going to be made by the same people. They've left the studio. But to have one good Alien game, I'm happy with that. All right. Getting down, number 3, Death Stranding. Now, I feel like most of us... I mean, I was right with you guys where I was confused about all the trailers and stuff leading up to the game, and we didn't know what the hell this game was even about or what you were supposed to be doing and stuff. But playing the game and now experiencing the entire game, I spent 50 hours in this game from start to finish. This game, still to this day, I beat it almost a year ago. It's probably been 8 months or so since I beat this game. Probably like, yeah, 7 or 8 months since I beat this game. It is still a constant thought in my head every single day. Like, no lie. Like, every single day something will happen where something pops up in my brain about this game. Whether it's the music or just certain cutscenes and stuff and the story elements. This game has such a strong relation to life and just the purpose of life. And it delves into death, really. It's really about the meaning of life and the meaning of our existence and how fragile life is. It's about forming connections with people. This game is more appropriate in today's actual, current situation with the pandemic going on and everything like that. This game is more of a stronger play now than it was at release. Because you could play this game now and you can be like, gosh, it's so relatable to everything going on in today's society. But this needed to be on here just because of the narrative. If you were to ask me, I thought about this for quite some time. If you were to ask me what is the best story that I've ever played in a video game, it's Death Stranding. The writing is hit or miss. There's some really kind of there's some cringe moments with some of the dialogue, right? It's it's Kojima's writing and stuff like that. So there's a few references, and there's a few him trying to be clever stuff going on. But God, this story, the actual meat of everything that goes on, and it's all explained at the end, and things connect, and everything's so deliberate with every decision. The gameplay reinforces the story in a way that's just no other game has that I've seen before. And I know it's not going to be for everyone. A lot of people call this game a walking simulator. I guess if you want to call it that, it's a bit disrespectful. This game and this style of game, to me, really needs to have its own genre called narrative adventure games. That's what I propose. But honestly, it won't be for everyone, but the only way you'll know if it's for you is if you play the game. And you have to play up to like chapter 3. Once you get to chapter 3 and you're still not feeling it, then maybe it isn't for you. But for me, it's like I was blown away by it. I love the world, design, everything about the game. Honestly, please play this game if you haven't. Just give it a chance. Again, play up to chapter 3. If by chapter 3 you still don't enjoy it, fine, maybe it's not for you. But I mean, for those like me who really enjoy storytelling, you need to experience this. This is so important. It's got such a strong message. And I mean, I was thrown for a loop. I honestly was. Just wow. All right, last 2 games. I had a hard time deciding between these last 2 games, but I feel like I'm very confident in my decision now. Number 2, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. This game was number 1 for a very long time until another game came out, but Witcher 3 Wild Hunt for me is probably the finest RPG that released this generation, and honestly, it's the storytelling in its world as well. Probably the most memorable thing about this game is that I was playing a side mission, right? And this side mission had, branching paths and stuff like that. You had different areas that you went to. It felt long and significant. And at the end of this side mission, I was like almost coming to tears over this one situation. And I realized, oh, this is a side mission. This has nothing to do with the main story. And that's what, to me, really, made me fall in love with the game. There's so much strong story elements here. I know CD Projekt Red today isn't the same as what they once were. We'll see how that goes in the future. But this game, incredible open world. I know a lot of people didn't really like the comment of this game, and this game does a lot, which is really the reason why it's not number 1. It does a lot, but it does everything pretty well. It just doesn't excel at one particular thing besides its storytelling, I would say. But that's not an actual gameplay element. But everything else about this game is phenomenal. I highly recommend it. Not everyone is into RPGs, but this is one that I feel you should definitely check out. It's great. And finally, number 1 took me by complete surprise, and that is God of War 2018, the reboot of the franchise. I hated God of War. The original games. Never liked them. Never liked them at all. I tried God of War 3. I tried playing God of War 3 3 times. Never could get through it. Just never could suffer through it. I found it so boring. I didn't give a shit about anything, and I was just like, I didn't like the gameplay. I am still a bit shell-shocked that God of War won my personal best game this generation, but it has. It's phenomenal storytelling, it's great visuals, it's great sound, and it's just incredible gameplay. Everything combined just makes for an incredible, unforgettable experience. The reason that this beat out Witcher 3 in the end, even though Witcher 3 does more in terms of its world design and different, exploration and stuff like that, Witcher 3 does more. God of War remains basically excellent at everything. It's more focused in what it does, and as a result, it does everything just not even extremely well, but like exemplary. Like it's like the best at everything almost it does. So just with the gameplay, with even the storytelling and the graphics and the sound, I mean, there's so much quality and just attention to detail with this game that just blew me away. And honestly, I'm still surprised again that it was as great as it was, but it really was. And the boss fights, I mean, there's so much in this game that I just won't forget, and I spent like 40 hours in this game doing everything I possibly could. So it is my personal best game of the 8th generation, but you know, honestly, all these games I mentioned, by the way, all the honorable mentions that I talked about, the top 5 best games this generation, all these are fantastic. And I do recommend that all of you at least give them a shot. Any of the games that I mentioned here, whether it be on my PC and whatnot, or just the consoles and stuff like that, but all these are just great. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it may have gone a little bit overboard. I know I went into detail about some of the stuff that I told you guys I wasn't going to go into detail about, but anyway, just want to get this out there. Hope you guys enjoyed it and have a fantastic, fantastic day. And let me know, what were your top 5 best games this generation? Did you guys notice any games in here that you haven't played that you're going to give it a shot? I do, again, highly recommend a lot of those. And other than that, we'll talk later. Thanks.